We have just come off an incredible and bold policy announcement from Advance UK's leader, Ben Habib. And Ben, I'm going to get into some of those extraordinary policies in just 1 second. But the first thing I wanted to check, is there a member of the mainstream media here?
Not
because
that
I
I'm
haven't
aware
seen
of.
one.
Not that I'm aware of, no.
That's appalling, isn't
They've
it?
probably crept in at the back. They're probably secret Advance UK members, but they can't disclose it.
Well, I wish that were the case. But Ben, look at this policy, because I think this is the one that really hit home in that room. You intend to confront threats to our values, culture, and way of life, but you were very specific in terms of how you were going to do that. Prohibit dual nationality, no Sharia courts or councils, effectively the banning of Sharia law in the UK, no public calls to prayer, ban the burqa and niqab, ban first cousin marriage, and this was the line that struck out to me most. Not multiculturalism, not integration, but assimilation.
Correct. And that is the line that should have jumped out most.
It really did.
It is the line that really underlines what Advance UK is about. You know, you look at the other political parties, at best they talk about integration. But integration from where we're at the moment is not going to solve the country's problems. We've got too many different cultures, too many antithetical cultures in this country, which, left to their own devices, will continue to present challenges for the British culture and therefore the British way of life and what we are as a nation. They must assimilate. They're in our country. They must buy into our history, our language, our art, our way of life, the kind of food we eat. You know, they've got to be comfortable with all of that. They can't be taking themselves off into separate cultural silos, existing, you know, separately from the British people. They have to be part of us if we want to have, you know, all successful countries require a pretty much homogenous culture, and that requires assimilation.
And this is designed, presumably, to stop the Islamist takeover, which we have seen in certain parts of the United Kingdom happen already.
It is. So Islam is the most muscular form of foreign ideology that we have taken into this country. It's a self-confident religion. It is proselytizing, it is converting, it's on the front foot. And what we've done with Islam is taken some of the most fundamentalist Muslims, and as distinct from extremists, you know, the other political parties all talk about extremism. Of course, extremism is bad, but there's something nearly as bad as extremism, which is fundamentalism. And we've got a lot of fundamentalist Muslims in this country, and that their view of life is antithetical to the United Kingdom. Not only have we taken them into the UK, we have then put a protective blanket around them through DEI, saying that their religion must be protected, Islamophobia laws are coming in one shape or form, their religion should be celebrated, promoted, etc. And actually Christianity should take a back seat, our way of life should take a back seat. What we've got to do is make ourselves more self-confident, more on the front foot, remove the protective blanket of DEI, and require all people in this country to assimilate with our position. That applies obviously to all Muslims, but everyone else as well.
But for example, under this policy, you are very clear, an MP being sworn in to our parliament will unable to be sworn in on the Quran. You're clear on that,
100%,
right?
yeah, 100%.
Which is a big change.
Yeah, and it's more than symbolic. Because if you swear on the Quran actually is an ideology of globalism. It's not really a nation-state ideology. The Bible and Christianity is quite able to tolerate nation-state. Islam is about Islam, and nation-states, you know, they're kind of secondary importance. And if you're going to recognise, as I think all MPs and public representatives in this country should, that this is constitutionally a Christian country, how is it that you're going to discharge your duties to that Christian constitution if you're swearing on another book? Now, there may be Muslims who are elected to being MPs, but they can swear on a neutral text, on a non-religious text, but also in that non-religious text, they must recognise, they must declare that they recognise that this is constitutionally a Christian country.
And a lot of the policies you announced today did seem to me to be about reinserting Christianity into a whole load of it.
Absolutely. We have culture, religion, way of life, habits, moral values, all of these things are interlinked. And what's happened with Christianity is that it's vacated the space. In the pursuit of being nice and being welcoming, we've basically set aside our own identity. That's why people are so challenged. They say, well, what does it mean to be British? And people go, oh, I don't know what it means to be British. It's because we've set it aside. And what I was trying to do today was to actually point to what it means to be British, the signs of Britishness, and to make sure that those signs are restored, including our Christian constitution.
Indeed. Now, look, the other policy which was hugely eye-catching, and I immediately posted on X, and it's had a huge response.
A good response or a negative
very
response?
good response, but from our people, you can imagine the type of response it's going to have from others, is that you are actually proposing, and this is now official policy, to recolonize our curriculum.
Yeah.
Because there has been this massive push to decolonize, to be ashamed of being British, to be ashamed of being Christians. So you are actually going to legislate to recolonize. So what will that mean in schools and for our education system?
So, I mean, it's very basic. You know, nowadays at school, you're taught that your forefathers are slave traders, that the empire was a force for evil, that Cecil Rhodes was a horrible human being, that Winston Churchill was a white supremacist. Even St. Paul's Cathedral on their website had Winston Churchill down as a white supremacist. All these things are being taught to our children. I should say our children are being indoctrinated by all this nonsense. And we've got to, if we're to be a confident nation, a nation that can confidently go forward knowing its existence is not being threatened, we must be proud of who we are. We can't be looking back over our shoulders at our forefathers and thinking we're awful people. And the truth is, we're very good people. We were the power that abolished the slave trade at the zenith. At the zenith of the empire. In the early 19th century.
Stop the self-loathing in terms of what our kids are taught at school.
And exactly. So teach them a proper, balanced approach to the British Empire, which is the greatest empire this world has ever seen. Did many, many great things for many parts of the world, and I've been a direct beneficiary of that. I grew up with the tailwinds. I was born with the tailwinds of the British Empire going through what was British India, was Pakistan when I was born. I know it was a force for good. I received education under the British imperial system as a child, and we've got to reteach that, to recolonize the curriculum, teach our history accurately, make sure our children are aware of who our national heroes are, the contributions they made, our national figures, our military figures, and so on. Make sure our children understand their Christian identity. Teach Christianity at school. Sure, you can do comparative studies with Christianity, but Christianity's got to be the theme. Sing hymns in chapel. Sing the national anthem, which is also a hymn. Require schools to have the Union flag everywhere, so everyone knows, every child knows that's my flag, this is my country. Reinforce all of that. It's basic stuff. But it's been we've turned our backs on it.
You've also proposed abolishing a whole load of bills, which you say have been absolutely central to the dismantling of the United Kingdom, really since the 90s. Do you just want to explain which bills in particular are going to go? Because these are really significant pieces of legislation which have shaped modern British history.
Yeah, except they've served to set aside what it means to be British.
Yeah, I mean, not in a good way.
Not in a good way.
Not in a good way, by the way. Let me make that very clear.
They've shaped us, but not in a good way.
Look, because it includes the Equalities Act, it includes the Human Rights Act, and you know that is going to send the lefties
up
and the
wall.
globalists bananas.
Absolutely. But that's what we have to do, and we need to be prepared for it. And there will be a reaction, and our other policies will address the reactions that we'll get from the globalist community. But we have to repeal the Equalities Act. We have to repeal aspects of the Companies Act, which forces businesses to recognize DEI. We've got to remove from all the regulatory bodies that we've created in this country this imposition of the DEI agenda. We've got to dismiss and destroy lots of regulatory bodies. We've got to get rid of the Human Rights Act. We've got to remove the ECHR through the Human Rights Act. And as I also mentioned, we have to get rid of the Withdrawal Agreement, which puts a border down the middle of the United Kingdom, hands over part of the country to foreign power, which makes it impossible for us actually to restore the United Kingdom. It makes it impossible, culturally, constitutionally, at any level, if you've handed over part of your country to a foreign power. There are some absolutely dramatic things we need to do, not extreme measures. What we're doing is radical, but we're reversing the extreme measures to which we've been subjected for the last 30 years.
And you're also vowing to abolish all hate speech laws, which will effectively mean that free speech would be back.
That's the point. It's really interesting to me, and hats off to Toby Young for all the efforts he's made with the Free Speech Union and stuff, but he's championing a new Free Speech Act. Actually, that's putting, in my mind, that's putting a sticking tape over a gaping wound. And the wound will only be healed if you remove all the stuff underneath it, the gunk and the infection of this wound. It'll only heal if you remove that. And that's all the acts of parliament that prohibited free speech in the first place. You'll remember, Dan, as a young man, we had free speech. I could say whatever the hell I wanted. There was never a risk of anyone cancelling me because I said something they didn't like. They might think he was a bit of a plonker. He said this, that, and the other. But they would never cancel you.
It's ridiculous.
Totally. No, I think it's incredibly important. And what I love is the specificity, because you have said, Ben, but it is worth repeating to the outspoken audience, you intend to, on day one, as Prime Minister, actually enter the House of Commons with an entire legislative agenda, which you will insist is immediately enacted to change the United Kingdom. And it will all be outlined in your manifesto.
And that's the key point. It'll all be outlined in the manifesto. The actual draft bills of Parliament required to give effect to the changes we wish to make will be drafted and addended to our manifesto. So when we go into Parliament, we have a precise mandate from the British people, a democratic mandate, which no civil servant, no member of the Lords, no member of all these regulatory bodies can resist, because the British people voted for it. And if they try and resist, we will wash them out of the way. We'll sweep them out of the way.
And when it comes to the niqab and the burqa, you know there will be some people, and you did address this on stage, but it's worth me putting it to you. There will be some people who say, well, actually, isn't that taking away a freedom to wear what?
Where liberalism has gone completely mad. Liberalism initially was a force for good for women. It emancipated women, obviously. It then brought them forward in the workplace. It gave them equal rights in the workplace and so on. Liberalism is now working at multiple levels against women's interests. For example, the transgender thing, allowing men to go into women's safe spaces, putting men in women's prisons, etc. Also, I think it is advocating a kind of over-sexualizing of women. You know, in the pursuit of liberalism, basically anything goes. Family values don't matter. In fact, family values are being stigmatized on the altar of liberalism. But here's the bizarre thing. At the same time as over-sexualizing women and saying they have the right to bare their boobs in public and do whatever the hell they want to, at the same time as saying that, liberalism is saying, actually, those women who want to continue to be repressed should be allowed to be repressed. Now, the history behind the burqa and the niqab is not for the protection of the woman. It's to make sure that men who can't control their urges aren't overly attracted to women.
Yes.
Its very existence is anti-women, because it's men who can't control themselves. And we've never had that situation, not in my lifetime in the United Kingdom, where women have to take such actions that because men can't control themselves. Men better flipping control themselves. The niqab and the burqa is a clear expression of repression of women.
Yes.
That's what it is. And it's also an overt rejection of British culture. And so for those two reasons, it needs to go. Now, I would much prefer if our culture was restored and people simply stopped wearing it. But we've reached a position now as a country where we are going to have to pull some levers.
Absolutely, because there are parts of London, for example, parts of Bradford, parts of Birmingham, where you actually only see women.
In niqabs and
Yeah.
hijab.
Yeah.
And not hijab. I haven't got a problem with the hijab in a big way, but I've got a real problem with the niqab and the burqa.
Politically, you were very bold up there. You hit back at the criticism of the fact that you have decided to run in the Gorton and Denton by-election, even though
Shock horror.
it potentially risks putting another Green MP in Parliament. You say, absolutely, that is the right decision to make. You are unapologetic about that.
If the Green Party win that seat, it makes no difference to the national discourse the next morning. If Reform win that seat, well, it's just another Tory 2.0 MP. If the Tories win the seat, well, it's another Tory. If the Labour win the seat, nothing changes. The only change that will happen is if Advance UK wins that seat. If Advance UK wins that seat, Dan, just think about it for a second. If Advance UK wins that seat, and you've now seen our first two policies unveiled, so you know the clear direction we're moving in, the establishment will be wetting itself. It will think, oh my goodness, what's going on here? And this is where I think other political parties, including Reform, have misunderstood the electorate. The electorate are voting Reform because they think it's going to do actually what Advance UK is going to do. It ain't going to do it. And so we need to get Advance UK into Parliament, and we need to hit the establishment hard. The biggest impact to the national discourse will come from an Advance UK MP, not from a Reform MP, not from a Tory MP, not from Labour or Greens.
Are you worried about dirty tricks going on in Gorton and Denton after these claims that Reform UK have broken electoral law with a letter being sent out without...
Yeah, I saw that.
I mean, is that a concern to you?
We're already experiencing dirty tricks from...
What's happening?
Well, for example, they're all coming out and accusing Nick, taking out of context stuff that Nick Buckley, our candidate, has said, and accusing him of being a misogynist, accusing him of being other things. I can't remember. There was another thing they accused him of, but they're taking it out of context and they're attacking him. Reform is doing precisely the same things it used to accuse the Tory party of doing. It's adopted their approach to campaigning. But I don't care. Bring it on. We'll keep straight doing our thing and we'll win through.
Do you have any concerns about Reform UK Treasurer Nick Candy appearing in the Epstein files?
So when Nick Candy became Treasurer, I've got a number of concerns about Nick Candy. I like Holly Valance a lot, by the way, and I'm reluctant to denounce her husband for her sake, but that's a personal issue.
Although they are no longer...
They're not, but it can't be nice for her children to hear her husband, her former husband, being denounced or separated or whatever they are. But the truth about Nick Candy, and I said this at the time when he was made Treasurer, is that he loves Tony Blair. He loves Mandelson. He said that in an article the day he became Treasurer. But the other big concern I have about Nick Candy is he's in bed with Qatar. He made all his big money financed by the Qataris. And then suddenly you see Farage off to the World Economic Forum, courtesy of an Iranian-born billionaire.
And also in the UAE.
And the UAE meeting, sidling up. Farage wrote an article in 2023 denouncing the UAE, saying that it must never be allowed to buy the Telegraph. Its human rights record is awful. How could we have them owning the Telegraph? He was there 2 weeks ago or last week, saying, actually, we weren't nice to the UAE over the Telegraph. We should have been nicer to them. He's completely changed. And influences like Nick Candy are probably part of it. Zahawi is another really negative influence in reform. This guy is part of the globalist order. He's part of the whole World Economic Forum, pro-migration. He was talking about giving asylum to all illegal migrants. Do you remember? He said we should just have an asylum,
Yes.
let them all in. This is what reform has become.
The most shocking aspect of everything that has emerged from the Epstein files is just how neck deep the entire British political establishment, the entire British media establishment, the entire political class are all in this deal, have all been looking after themselves for years. The choice we face, I believe, at the next election is about establishment versus non-establishment. And the British public, I think, will go against the establishment, as we always have. Look at the Brexit referendum, for example, with everything that was thrown at us. But what has been your feeling seeing these revelations emerge, seeing Starmer's credibility absolutely dissolve, yet him refuse to go? I mean, this is one of the most shameful periods of British modern history, is it not?
It is. I mean, we should be ashamed of ourselves ever since 2016. I mean, but what Blair did was horrendous, but he did it under the radar. It wasn't obvious. Mandelson, as you rightly point out, is part of a sick establishment. And the fact that he was thrown out of government twice, then ennobled, then made ambassador, in the heart of the establishment, without any accountability for what they must have been awful, says to me that they've all done awful things, and he probably knows quite a lot about what they've been up to. So I think
But some of this stuff is satanic.
it is satanic. It's awful. It's awful. It's absolutely
And they all
wretched.
knew it.
I know. It's horrendous. So you have to ask yourself the question, what have they been up to? The revelations that are going to come. And they are going to be revelations. There are going to be revelations about people we'll be surprised about. But they will come. And if they charge Mandelson and he's found guilty, he will blab.
All over the country, so
And he must
people
have the dirty sort of tricks on everyone.
So could we be seeing the total downfall of the British establishment here, or are they going to do what they always do and find a way to protect themselves?
No, I think we are seeing the end of what has to date been the British establishment. I can't remember a time in history where the main parties, the Tory party and the Labour party, have fallen to such low levels of popularity.
Do you say Nigel Farage is part of that establishment?
Well, he's Tory 2.0. Isn't he? He's got Zahawi in the party. He's got Jake Berry in the party. These guys are pro-migration, pro-net zero, pro-lockdown, pro-vaccine mandate, quite happy with the World Economic Forum. How do you change the establishment if you welcome the establishment into your midst? It's impossible.
And are you calling on Starmer finally to resign?
So for me, it's academic whether he resigns or not. I mean,
He's done.
there should be an election. I mean, it doesn't suit Advance UK to have an election right now because we're not ready, but there should be an election. The Labour Party's done. There's no one to replace Starmer. That's the problem. He is politically mortally wounded. But who's going to come in? David Lammy? I mean, for Christ's sake,
Don't even suggest it. No, don't even suggest it. Well, I think it's going to be, I've given her my nickname, Red Rainer the Tax Evader. But the irony is, they're literally doing the same thing that they did with Mandelson. They are allowing someone who has been completely disgraced
to come back in.
to come back because they have no one else. And this is what the Labour Party always do. I actually think it's truly disgusting. But in my view, it's her. I know there's another school of thought that actually believe that Tony Blair is secretly advocating for Shabana Mahmood. Of course, she would be the first Muslim Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. She has been open about the fact that she has an Islamist agenda that drives her in. But these are her words.
She's been on pro-Palestinian marches.
Well, yeah, but her words are, my Islamist faith drives every decision I make.
That's what I mean about Islam being a globalist religion.
So it's scary. It's scary times. But look, it was a very positive day. Ben Habib, congratulations on your first policy launch.
We will save the UK.
We will?
We will save it, absolutely. The British
We need
people
a
will
bit
wake
of
up.
damn hope. We need a bit of damn hope. Well, look, I was in that room today. You know, I was there as an independent journalist, as I always am, but it was an incredible vibe. I just think what is pretty shameful is the fact that you don't see a reporter from Talk TV there, you don't see a reporter from GB News there, you don't see a reporter from the Daily Telegraph there. They actually need to be shamed. They do.
Yeah.
But it's also why we need to move away from relying on the mainstream media
But
whatsoever.
thank you for coming. Thank you for supporting us. Thank you for giving me airtime. And as you saw yourself, the room was packed.
Yeah, something's happening.
Something's
in the
happening.
UK. Ben Habib, thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Thank you so much.
Time